I'm Lau Branson. This is the second of a series of 6 videos that walks through the assumptions and process of practical theology. Just at a quick review, the purpose of practical theology as we're discussing it is to discern God's initiatives, that God is on the ground with us, with our neighbors, and our world. And so we're committed to discerning what the Trinity is doing so that a people of faith can be shaped to participate in those initiatives from God. So the goal, discerning and joining God's initiatives. We also have discussed the primary theological assumptions, that God is the primary agent, that human beings are subjects, not objects, and that the church is to be a discerning and participating community. The steps of the process, as we're discussing it, move from current praxis to a new praxis. And in this video, we're talking about the work of step 1, and that is naming and describing the current practice. All of this is going to move through action and reflection. Steps 1 and 5 are more about action, the current praxis, and then a subsequent new praxis. And the work of doing PT is working through the reflection that is required for us to discern better, more faithfully, in a way that shapes us as a community that's ready to participate more completely. So step 1 is about the current praxis. It would be described this way: name and describe your current praxis regarding a specific experience or set of activities. It needs to be focused and named so that it's something that a group of people can begin to work with. In this video, we'll briefly look at 3 different elements of this step: to clarify the theme or focus, to shape an environment for learning and critical reflection, and to select a team that's going to be prodding, promoting, learning on behalf of the church and in engagement with the church for this discernment process. Remember that the work of leadership is not about casting a vision, managing a strategy, or controlling the outcomes. In practical theology, leadership is about shaping an environment in which a learning community can discern God's initiatives and become a participatory community. So, in naming and describing the current praxis concerning a particular experience, we're going to look toward clarifying a theme or focus, then shaping that environment for learning and reflection, and selecting a team. And remember, it's all about waking up. It combines awareness, study, conversation, questioning, assumptions, prayer, and experimenting. All of those elements will be engaged as we walk through the whole process. So first of all, the work is to clarify a theme or a focus. This is about the what. It's a praxis. A praxis is some set of activities that have theories or theology embedded in them. And we want to name some focus that is that kind of praxis. When? This happens in a church when there's some prodding or prompting. Something has surfaced this issue. It's brought it to the attention. It seems to be important. It seems to weigh something. The how is in naming. We do that through stories and awareness. And the how is about describing. It's the initial articulation of what it is that's come into our awareness about our praxis that needs to have some attention. Awareness may be abrupt or gradual. The conversations and stories and prayer will increase the clarity. And if you name a solution, it's not a PT process. You're into management and control. You need to shape an environment for learning and critical reflection as part of this first step. This has to do with the leadership work of fostering an awareness, paying attention to organizational dynamics, who's going to feel they need to weigh in, who thinks they need to control. And you need to work with all of that if you're going to shape a real learning, participatory, discerning community. You want to nurture instead of control. You want to nurture curiosity and imagination. Those who have claims at turf, who already have conclusions, part of the leadership work is to tap that down, to create the space for learning. And as leaders, you need to model curiosity. You need to model an openness to conversation, primarily because you are constantly modeling good behavior or good conversations. Be aware of the social temperature. You may need to raise the temperature. You may need to lower the temperature to create this kind of environment. Use questions all the time in diverse places. Shape new connections. Help different people connect and talk to each other, tell stories, learn from each other. When you select a team for the PT process, start with beginning with just a couple or a few participants who are aware, they're curious, and they're ready to do some work. That group's going to be expanded. They will, with you, start shaping new conversations simply to create broader attention, and you're going to start finding out diverse voices that have an interest in, feel compelled to engage this particular focus. Then try some brief gatherings of different types to clarify the theme. Then find out who is committed to this. So you're getting commitments from a team that is ready to pray, to listen, to reflect, to study, to collaborate, to do some work over a period of weeks or months. This is setting up the connections with the organizational structures because they need to be looped in, the boards, the committees. Although you're trying to create a team that crosses those current structures, they need to have a sense that they've got a voice. And this group will name an initial timeline, fairly brief. You're going to assume initial reflections and experiments over a period of weeks or months that then are going to create a further process. So in order to name and describe the praxis of step 1, you're going to clarify the theme and focus. You're going to shape an environment for learning and critical reflection, and you're going to select a team for the PT process. In your first meeting, make sure you spend some time in prayer and scripture. And I mean by this a listening approach to both prayer and scripture. Each person will have the time to name why it's important for them personally, but also why they think it's important for the church. Again, this is about listening to each other. And then you set out an initial schedule and some assignments that are related to the steps of the PT cycle, as we'll be working through those in the coming videos. Some of the voices here, again, all of this is covered in different ways in both the book with Juan Martinez, Churches, Cultures, and Leadership, as well as the book I wrote with Lau Branson, Leadership, God's Agency, and Disruption. A couple of others that were influential in setting up teams and naming the process. A book on the missional leader by Al Roxborough and Fred Romanek, and then Peter Senge. He wrote The Fifth Discipline. I found that the Fifth Discipline field book that he had collaborators on is actually clearer and sets out many of these steps. So as we work through this first step, the next video then will be about how the culture and the context is part of our discernment process.